Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I don't understand why people come in the room. When I go in somebody's room, the first thing I do is hit the like button. And I appreciate all my new subscribers. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But on this one, I told you I was starting a series. You can't make this, I want to say SHIT up. This is really unbelievable here. Couple sentenced to 100 years without parole for SAing, abusing adopted children in Walton County. Hold on. This the couple. You can't make this up. Oh my God. A Walton County couple will spend the rest of their lives in jail without parole. And this is near Atlanta, Georgia. Like I said, this how they look. What they did to them kids was awful. They I ain't an advocate for the death penalty, but that's what they need. They were convicted of sexually abusing their adopted children. The Alcove Judicial Circuit District Attorney's Office, which oversees, oh, let me do this. Okay, which oversees Walton and Newton County, said William and Zachary Zolock were convicted of the following charges. William Zolock, 6 counts of aggravated sodomy. Oh my God. Oh my God. If y'all ever been a victim as a child of molestation, this is awful. 6 counts of aggravated sodomy, 3 counts of aggravated child molestation, 2 counts of sexual exploitation of children, and other sexual offenses. Mm. Zachary, he got 2 counts of aggravated sodomy. God, how y'all do that to these children? 3 counts of aggravated child molestation, 2 counts of sodomy, 3 counts of sexual exploitation of children, 2 counts of pandering for a person under 18, and other sexual offenses. This the couple. They got 100 years each. Mm. William pled guilty to all crimes in August. In October, Zachary also pled guilty to every charge except one, which he was found guilty of after a bench trial, the district attorney's office said. Both were sentenced by the judge last Thursday. It cannot be stressed enough how important it is for our society to have individuals willing to adopt children in need. But anyone who does so and then abuses those children deserves extremely harsh consequences and decades in prison. No, they need the death penalty, what they did to them kids, said Randy McGinley. The sentence imposed not only appropriately punished these defendants for their repeated selfish actions, but also sends the message to the public that such actions will never be taken lightly. This is this is the gay couple that sodomized, sold they adopted kids. They did everything to them, and they was rich. Mm, mm, mm. The Walton County Sheriff's Office began investigating the case in July 2022. when the CBI's Exploitation and Computer Crimes Unit contacted deputies about a tip from a National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The tip was about suspected homemade child sexual abuse material that was uploaded to a Google account and connected to an IP address in Walton County. Deputies searched the home associated with the IP address and found Hunter Lawless, who admitted to the crime and said he received the material from Zachary. Lawless pled guilty to sexual exploitation of children, was sentenced to 20 years, with the first 12 to be served in prison. Investigators then searched the Zolak's home, where they lived with two young boys they adopted a few years before. During the interview, both men admitted to sexually abusing the children. You can't make this up. It's some sick people in this world. I was a victim as a child, and this is just wow, heartbreaking. Law enforcement received 2 weeks of footage from the home's interior surveillance camera, which shows several acts of abuse in different parts of the house. Their cell phones also had graphic material and text and social media message about the abuse, according to the district attorney's office. A cell phone review found that Zach had sent messages to Luis Vicaro Sanchez about the abuse. Sanchez pled guilty to pandering for a person under 18. After also pleading guilty to stealing computers from his workplace, a Kroger in Loganville, he was sentenced to 16 years, with the first 15 to be served in prison. These two defendants truly create a house of horrors and put extremely dark desires above everything and everyone else. However, the depth of the defendant's depravity, which is as deep as it gets, oh Lord, they was even selling these little boys. God, dog, you can't make this up. Mm, mm, mm. Hold on, I think I had. And you can't make that up. Let me get into these videos because this is gonna be a short video. Oh, you can't make this shit up. Don't fall. Okay, here we go.
2022, a seemingly perfect family in an affluent Atlanta suburb shattered the illusions of their community. Two respected professionals, banker and a government employee, living in a luxurious home.
Wait a minute, let me start this over. I want to start it over.
Okay. In 2022, a seemingly perfect family in an affluent Atlanta suburb shattered the illusions of their community. Two respected professionals, a banker and a government employee, living in a luxurious home with their adopted children. But behind closed doors lurked a darkness so profound it would shock even veteran investigators. This is the story of William and Zachary Zulok, and the horrific betrayal of two innocent children who deserved nothing but love and protection. Before we dive deeper into this disturbing case, please subscribe to True Crime Files and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us continue bringing awareness to cases that need to be told, no matter how difficult they may be to hear. In the quiet suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, success and respectability often wear a perfect mask. William Zulok, 34, and Zachary Zulok, 36, appeared to be the embodiment of the American dream. Successful careers, a beautiful home, and what seemed to be a heartwarming story of adoption through a Christian special needs organization. Like and subscribe if you believe in exposing the truth behind perfect facades. The Zulocks maintained carefully curated public personas. Zachary worked in banking, handling other people's money and trust. William held a government position, sworn to serve the public. They were seen as pioneers in their community, a same-sex couple who had opened their hearts and home to two young brothers through adoption in 2018. But appearances can be deceiving, and in this case, they hid something far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. The first cracks in the Zulocks facade appeared when authorities received an alert from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. A suspicious Google account traced to a Walton County address had raised red flags. But what investigators would uncover would shake even the most hardened law enforcement officers to their core. When authorities executed a search warrant at the Zulocks residence, they discovered a horrifying truth. The home's surveillance system, which recorded 2 weeks of footage, revealed abuse occurring throughout the house. The digital evidence was staggering. Over 7 terabytes of data containing graphic images, videos, and damning text messages. The truth was devastating. From the moment these young boys entered their home, they had been subjected to systematic abuse. The brothers, now aged 12 and 10, had endured unimaginable trauma since they were just 3 and 5 years old. The investigation revealed a network of exploitation that extended beyond the home's walls. The Zulocks had connected with at least 2 other individuals in a local abuse network, using social media platforms to further exploit their victims. The case broke when an alleged member of this ring was caught downloading illegal content and revealed the source, the Zulock household. Perhaps most chilling was the evidence of Zachary's brazen attitude toward the abuse. He had sent messages to friends, boasting about his intentions to harm his child, even sharing evidence of the abuse through Snapchat. The case took another disturbing turn when investigators learned that Zachary had faced similar accusations in 2011. A previous assault allegation had been reported, but never properly pursued by prosecutors. A failing of the system that would have devastating consequences years later. What systems failed these children? How did these men pass adoption screening? Could this tragedy have been prevented if the 2011 allegations had been properly investigated? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Was enough done to protect these vulnerable children? How can we better protect adopted children from predators who exploit the system? Let us know your perspective. In the end, justice was served. Both William and Zachary Zulock pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy, and sexual exploitation of children. They were sentenced to 100 years in prison without the possibility of parole. District Attorney Randy McGinley said it best. These 2 defendants truly created a house of horrors and put their extremely dark desires above everything and everyone else. But he also highlighted the incredible resilience of the victims, noting that their strength and resolve through this ordeal was truly inspiring. If you found this story important, please help us spread awareness.
Wow. I ain't got no words. I ain't got no words.
Adopting a child from foster care can be wonderful. It helps thousands of children in foster care find permanent families. Often the children come from unstable homes or have families that aren't able to meet their needs. Adoption also allows adults to experience parenthood. sometimes due to infertility or medical complications, or in today's case, couples in same-sex relationships having biological children is not an option. So adoption is an alternative to starting a family together and sharing their life with a child. It can lead to rewarding and meaningful relationships between a parent and a child and provide loving and stable homes to children who need them. At least that's the hope. Of course, there are always the outlying horror stories you hear about children being placed with their forever families only to have them turn into forever nightmares as they endure physical and or verbal abuse. It's chilling that in a home that's supposed to be filled with love and support, some children experience terrible tragedies from the people they're supposed to be able to trust. And today's episode focuses on a particularly gruesome case that involves the mistreatment of two boys by the hands of their very own adoptive parents. My name is Lucy, and on today's episode of Killer Bites, we're looking at a case involving two young boys, brothers, from the foster care system. They were supposed to be placed in their forever home, but it turned out to be a house of nothing but terror and abuse for them, all inflicted by their own adoptive parents, William and Zachary Zulak. I'd like to warn viewers that the story I'm about to talk about contains a lot of graphic content on very sensitive subject matters such as pedophilia, child sexual abuse, and child pornography. Here on Killer Bites, we want to handle the information we share with respect, but we strongly advise viewer discretion. I would also like to mention that this case is still ongoing. Court proceedings are still taking place and evidence is still being reviewed. And because of that, a lot of the information we have is currently only alleged. On the night of July 27th, 2022, in Loganville, Georgia, police entered the home of William and Zachary Zulak. They were a married couple and adoptive parents of two brothers, ages 11 and 9. The authorities were there because they had evidence that suggested the parents were responsible for sexually abusing and assaulting their own sons. Not only that, but it was also believed that the two men were responsible for recording the abuse through photography and film and distributing it among other sexual predators in the surrounding area.
Wow.
11:30 p.m. when the police arrived at the Zulak residence. Zachary, who was 35 years old, answered the door and the police immediately took him into custody. They slammed him to the ground and handcuffed him. They found his partner, 33-year-old William, in bed. William was sleeping without clothes on, so at the time of the arrest, he was taken out of his home and escorted to a squad car completely nude. There he would wait until around 4 a.m. when the authorities raided his house. Then he and Zachary were transported to the county jail around 4 a.m. The two boys were also found and taken in for a sexual assault medical forensic examination, also known as a SANE exam. During each of their evaluations, the nurse performing the exam did find evidence that suggested the boys had been sexually violated.
Wow.
They found injuries on the 11-year-old that were a result of being sexually assaulted. The police came prepared with a warrant which allowed them to seize any and all assets of the Zulaks to look for evidence. This included the house, any cars parked in the driveway, and any possessions on the property. As they searched the house, they found more horrific evidence linking William and Zachary as perpetrators to the two boys' abuse. They found dozens of files on a computer, both photos and videos documenting the tortures and abuse the boys had to endure. On top of that, they also got access to cell phone data and found on Zachary's phone a folder labeled Us. On it was even more photo and video evidence of sexually explicit materials involving the two boys. What's even more disturbing is that often William appeared in the recordings or pictures participating or forcing the boys to engage in these inappropriate acts.
Oh
And
my
it looked like
God.
Zachary was the one behind the camera. The parents, the ones these boys were supposed to call their family, were allegedly the very people exploiting them. In the end, the detectives were able to obtain 149 photos, 2 flash drives with William and Zachary's cell phone data, 2 handwritten letters from the oldest son, the SANE exam results for both boys, and they even found clothing in the boys' closets that matched the clothing the boys in the video were wearing. Some of the photos and videos dated all the way back to the year 2019.
Lord,
which meant these
have
boys had
mercy.
supposedly been experiencing this abuse for years. The evidence was quickly stacking up against William and Zachary, and by the end of the raid, the two culprits had racked up a total of 17 charges against them. Authorities found that many of these materials had been shared via email or messaging systems with other male predators. They also found evidence that suggests William and Zachary pimped out their own kids to a network of other pedophiles. Two of those predators
Didn't I just say they pimped out their own? Lord, have mercy. Them kids might not ever be right. Ever be right.
were Hunter Clay Lawless and Luis Armando Vizcarro Sanchez. Both men were arrested for soliciting an act of sales with a human, and they also lived in the Loganville area. It remains unclear if either of them ever physically met the boys or had any sexual interactions with them. Actually able to identify the Zulags as sexual predators because of Hunter. You see, earlier that very same day, the police received an alert from a software program designed to detect when large amounts of data containing child pornography or explicit materials containing minors is being accessed and or downloaded. The user was 27-year-old Hunter. Having taken him into custody and interrogated him, Hunter told the authorities about Zachary. He through a mutual friend, and as soon as they did, started receiving explicit materials with the young boy. His involvement by a plea deal, however, he talked about his interactions with Zachary, which he said were brief. Hunter claimed that it was Zachary who instigated conversations and that it was Zachary who boasted that the young boy lived Zachary said he was going to sexually abuse his son that night and that Hunter should stand by. Later, Zachary allegedly sent documentation of him doing exactly what he said he would. Hunter said he received numerous invitations from Zachary to join them and even messages that solicited the boys themselves, soliciting them like objects or property and not like a human being, let alone
you can't make this up.
But again, Hunter insisted that he never met the boys in person. Knowing that both the victims and the supposed perpetrators were living at the same residence, the police were able to find the Zulak's home address and obtain a warrant. The other predator, a 25-year-old man named Luis, had his own unrelated charges, which included a charge that suspected him of coercing a 13-year-old into sex, who was his own relative. Still, other unidentified men are being investigated based on the computer and cell phone evidence the police were able to collect. Now, it may surprise you that when this story first came to light, it wasn't covered by many news outlets. This could be for many reasons. Some critics say it's related to bipartisan issues and media control, while others suggested it could be because of the graphic and violent nature of the crime. Especially when it comes to dealing with an assault on a minor, it's important to not only report the news, but to protect the victims and keep them safe. All public records have redacted the two boys' names to protect their identities. Regardless of why it was or was not covered by the news channels at the time, in August 2022, the news source Town Hall released a 4-part investigative article about the Zulak case. It revealed some horrifying things. So let's start with the perpetrators. William and Zachary met in 2013. They seemed like the perfect couple, both highly social media influencers and gay rights activists at rallies, parades, or other events supporting LGBTQ causes. They were even featured in Out magazine, a popular queer-centered publication, for a campaign they participated in advocating for same-sex rights. Zachary's Instagram profile, which is still available to view to the public but hasn't been active in several months, has a large array of uplifting and affirming photos and posts. He posted a picture of himself and William posing at the Atlanta Pride Parade. In another, the couple posed on their date night, Zachary wearing a rainbow-colored SunTrust t-shirt, a bank where he worked as a branch coordinator. They participated in AIDS Walk Atlanta for several years. People sometimes referred to them as the darlings of the local LGBTQ community. They often tagged their posts with #gay, #lovewins, or #loveIsLove. 4 years later, on December 14th, 2017, Zachary and William were married. Zachary posted several times that week showing off the ceremony, the wedding party, and the professional wedding photos he and William posed for. In a video post, they kicked off the ceremony with the wedding party walking down the aisle to Shania Twain's From This Moment On. It seemed like a beautiful and picture-perfect wedding for a happy couple. It wasn't long after the wedding that the couple looked to start a family together. The Zulaks looked into going through the adoption process with a Christian adoption agency known as All God's Children.
Wow.
It is now defunct, but it's specialized in connecting parents with children with special needs. On March 26, 2018, the couple hosted an adoption shower. The banner photo for the event had a chalkboard in a garden with the message written, "We're growing, by 4 feet." 2 pairs of adult shoes and 2 pairs of children's shoes adorned the sides of it. Zachary and William had been matched with 2 little boys. They were brothers, ages 7 and 9. They were originally placed in a foster care system when they were 3 and 5, taken from a home with parents that had issues with substance abuse. In the event description, they wrote, "The adoption process is moving along faster than expected." This puzzled many people. The process only took approximately 8 to 12 weeks before they were matched, whereas a typical adoption process can take anywhere from 6 months to over 6 years. Nonetheless, William and Zachary went through criminal background checks. That's because
they was wealthy.
Pre-adoption parenting classes, completed a family assessment, and had a social worker conduct a home study, all within an expedited timeline. I guess maybe the agency looked at the couple and thought they could provide stable physical and financial care for the boys, but it still raises the question, why were they matched so quickly? On November 7th, 2018, they met their new kids, and Zachary took to Facebook posting the exciting news. On Wednesday, November 7th, 2018, at 8:30 a.m., the adoption is completely finalized and we will be a forever family. #ZulockHome. Again, the Zulocks digital footprint painted the picture of two loving parents who are excited to grow as a family. But if the allegations are true, their family turned out to be so far from that picture-perfect social media persona. On May 22nd, 2019, Zachary announced on Instagram that they'd purchased land to build their new home with their new family. A photo accompanied it of the couple posing against a wooden fence. Behind them, a large, beautiful but barren landscape. Again, time seemed to be on their side because within 6 months of starting construction, a giant mansion sitting on a 2-acre secluded cul-de-sac in a prestigious neighborhood of Walton County was built. This posed another red flag for people since other houses in the neighborhood were said to be sold at over $900,000. At the time, William worked as a government worker and Zachary worked at a bank as a branch coordinator. And $900,000 seems like that would be a little out of a government worker and a bank coordinator's price range. The family also took numerous trips together, visiting tourist attractions all across America. The couple posted photos of the boys at the Bean in Chicago, a selfie in front of the Human Rights Campaign headquarters in Washington, D.C., and a trip to a cabin in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. On the husband's social media pages, you can see they decorated their home with uplifting quotes about love and acceptance. Their couch was decorated with rainbow throw pillows, all saying, "Love above all." They had a light-up neon sign that read, "Love is love," and their welcome mats adorning the doors were cute little quips like, "Gayest place in town," and "It's basically a zoo in here." I'm not saying that a family with two parents working stable jobs can't go on vacation or have a nicely furnished home, but their online presence definitely had some people curious about how they could afford what seemed like a lavish lifestyle. As time passed, the Zulocks shared life updates. William posted on his Instagram account, which has since been removed, celebrating their 1-year anniversary as a family. In it, himself, Zachary, and the boys all posed wearing matching shirts that said Zulock 2019. In his caption, he wrote, "It's been just over a year as their parents. We have loved every moment of it. Was a little rough starting out, but we beat the 1-year mark. This was our second year to the ocean. Last year was the first time they've seen it. I just love how this picture turned out. Our little #adoption family." It's especially disturbing to remember that the evidence the police found dated as early as 2019, which means it's very plausible that already,
This is
only a year into
awful.
being placed in their new home, these boys were enduring the unspeakable. In 2019, Zachary posted photos of the boys, both holding school certificates. Their faces were censored by their parents, and at the time, they were in 1st and 2nd grade. This is when the abuse was alleged to have started. And on November 7th, 2021, Zachary posted on the family's 3rd year of being together. I can't help but think that instead of that date marking what was supposed to be the happiest day of these kids' lives, it might actually mark the day they were betrayed. If these allegations are true, everything was so far from what it seemed. It's clear to everyone that this was supposedly all just a front, hiding unimaginable horrors behind glitzy and happy posts. But how could this all have happened? How could two boys fall into the hands of such terrible parents, and how could their abuse go on for so long unnoticed? During investigations, a source shared that William and Zachary had allegedly told the boys, "Our business is our business, and what happens in our home stays in our home." These kids probably felt trapped and thought they couldn't turn to anyone. Authorities also found Instagram messages from Zachary reaching out to the woman that had originally helped them out with their first adoption. In the text chain, Zachary wrote that they were interested in trying to adopt another child.
Lord, have
This time they were looking
mercy.
for a little girl, toddler-aged. Can you
Lord.
believe that? I mean, why did they feel the need to extend the abuse?
Right.
This was back in October of 2021, almost a year from when these men would be caught. The woman informed him that the agency had closed, but that wouldn't stop the Zulocks. Zachary then asked if she could refer him to a different agency. I don't have any sources that suggest he ever contacted any of the sources she gave him, but I just can't understand how this couple could continue to abuse their children and decide they needed another child to inflict harm upon. According to the 17-count indictment against both William and Zachary Zulock, the charges included incest, aggravated sodomy, aggravated child molestation, felony sexual exploitation of children, and felony prostitution of a minor.
Lord, have
During court
mercy.
proceedings, evidence continued to reveal itself. In an interview, William confessed in a sworn affidavit that he forced the 11-year-old boy to perform an oral act with the intent to satisfy his own sexual desire. Zachary admitted to sending child material to multiple people, but phrased it as less than a dozen, as if sending it to only one person would have been okay. It also came
Wow.
to light that Zachary had a previous sexual assault charge, also against a minor. Back in 2011, when Zachary would have been 24 years old, he allegedly lured a 14-year-old boy into a residence before assaulting him. This took place in Walton County, the same county as the child sexual abuse case took place. So how did this not come up in the criminal background
Exactly.
he had to undergo during the adoption process? Well, apparently this case just fell through the cracks of the justice system, which sounds absurd to me. How can someone who's even suspected as a child predator be overlooked when it comes to adopting a child? The case was 11 years cold at this point, and when prosecutors tried to trace it back to the original investigators assigned to it, they found that they were all retired. However, they were able to contact one of the current detectives of the Criminal Investigations Division, Lieutenant Zachary Barrett. He commented that the 2011 case handled in a manner that is inconsistent with today's current investigatory standards. He agreed in the case and looked at possible leads that could lead to more charges being made against Zachary. In addition to the sexual abuse, an anonymous source said that the boys were also subjected to physical abuse.
Oh my God.
William and Zachary, and said the kids were forced to stand in the corner, sometimes for 8 hours or more, as punishment. During that time, they weren't allowed to move unless it was time to eat or they had to use the bathroom. Another source said they witnessed William slap one of the boys across the face.
Oh my
Judge Jeffrey L.
God.
Foster is presiding for this horrific case. And at first, attorney John Haldy was hired to represent both William and Zachary. They filed for bond. However, Judge Foster denied their motion. He
Absolutely.
concluded that the two Zuluak men were a threat to the community and children and could intimidate or influence witnesses or victims related to the case. He also wanted the couple to be tried separately. He ordered that William and Zachary be kept at separate facilities and be represented by different attorneys. He said the men would have to testify against each other, and he removed their right to claim immunity.
Ooh.
This means the defendants couldn't use the excuse that since they were married, they shouldn't have to testify against each other. So
Wow.
Zachary was moved to the Barrow County Detention Center while William remains at Walton County Jail. Their shared attorney, Haldy, withdrew his support for Zachary and remained as William's legal representation. Zachary has been trying to find a private attorney, but because of his seized assets and lack of funds, he's finding it difficult. Although they're being kept in separate facilities, both Zachary and William have communicated with some mutual contacts. They were given allotted phone calls as well as tablet devices that had software called Jail ATM installed. This app allows friends and family to stay in contact with inmates. Users can email, video chat, and send monetary funds. They both used it to talk to a shared relative, and both complained about their treatment in jail. William, who's lactose intolerant, said he couldn't eat most of the food in the cafeteria, and the stuff he could
Good.
eat wasn't high quality
You don't
enough.
need to do
I
that.
don't
Should
even
have
know a
gave you the
dog would eat
death
these bologna
penalty.
sandwiches. That's how low grade the meat is, he said. He also called the housing conditions decrepit. When the relatives asked about some of the charges, William got teary-eyed and said, "All I can say is, I don't want to say it, but brace yourself for the truth." William also expressed concern for Zachary, saying that his partner was an emotional person and probably wasn't taking this all very well. And he was right. In the neighboring county, Zachary was also messaging about his time in jail. "I was just threatened again," Zachary wrote, "to physically beat me or have someone do it
Right.
for him."
Is that, and
He
you
said he had been getting
should.
threats from his cellmates and even drugged at one point. He suspected that one of his fellow inmates slipped something in his drink because at one point someone offered him something and he didn't accept it. Then later,
And
the
they
inmate
should
asked
whoop
him if
your
he wanted
ass.
another. Zachary said, "Another one? I've never had one before." He then claims that his arm went numb and he experienced what he thought to be stroke-like symptoms. He insisted that he be taken to a hospital and be evaluated for a stroke. Instead, he was taken to the medical wing of the facility and given a... When he was asked about if he was worried about the kids, Zachary said he was, but quickly moved on to, I guess, what he thought was more pressing matters like his finances. He rambled on about payments on the house and the seizure of his assets and how it was going to affect him. He even started going down a mental list of subscriptions he needed to cancel so that he wouldn't get charged for it. I'll admit it's hard to sympathize with these men. To complicate things further, Judge Foster had to issue a gag order which restricts what information can be released to the public and what certain people involved in the case can say. Why? Because the shared contact William and Zachary had was leaking their text chains and phone conversations to the public, and it wasn't making them look good. The couple were shocked, but, I mean, come on, you're being held in a prison for committing crimes. Are you really surprised that your calls are being monitored? By this time, months of recorded jailhouse calls were already made available. In one message, Zachary pleaded that he be released on bond. He said, "Tell the DA that I want an ankle monitor, and if required, a low bond amount." Does he really think he has the power to negotiate that?
Heck,
And that he
no.
can request a low bond amount? Zachary also admitted to some of the physical abuse charges he heard were against him. Using jail ATM, he wrote that he knew they weren't supposed to physically abuse the boys since they were told that it was illegal before when they were in the process to adopt. So I guess the Zulaks just thought making the boys stand in the corner for hours on end was an appropriate alternative since they weren't hitting them. I don't know what was going through their heads. And this isn't the only loophole Zachary tried to conduct. While he was in pretrial detainment, apparently he tried to get around the system's security and contact an old coworker of his undetected. He handwrote a letter, took a picture of it, then, using another inmate's tablet, sent it to the former colleague. However, it was still leaked. In the letter, Zachary revealed some of his legal strategies, if you can still even call them that. Without representation from an attorney, he was desperate to get out on bond. He wanted to claim that the night of the raid, the police used excessive and brutal force when they entered the home. He was asking for body camera footage, if it existed, to back up his argument. He also brought up the rule of sequestration and wanted to use it against the officer that interviewed him that night. Rule of sequestration is used to ensure that witnesses do not discuss the facts of the case or their testimony with other witnesses before appearing at trial. He claimed that the officer threatened him and wouldn't answer his questions. Zachary was also requesting that his coworker look at old cases regarding similar subject matter when it came to the seizure of their property and their assets. He seemed a lot more concerned with his stuff than he did for the actual crimes he was accused of committing. Zachary also asked about estoppel and nolo contendere plea. The former allows the court to prevent a person from making claims or from going back on their word. The latter roughly translates to no contest, and by taking this plea in court, Zachary would accept the conviction but would not admit guilt for his crimes. This guy was really set on trying to beat the court at their own game.
Wow.
He really should have just been concerned with the actual charges he was accused of. It got to a point where Zachary even tried to reach out to the Walton County District Attorney himself and arrange a bond or plea deal without a lawyer. Many of the leaked messages from William's side seemed to express concern for Zachary. Multiple times, William asked their relative to relay messages to his partner that he missed him or that he loved him. But as Zachary tried to weave his complicated web of supposed loopholes, the court started getting irritated. In one message, William wrote, "Please tell him to slow down, and he can't rush any of this, and he needs to take some of my patience. And don't get fooled by what seems like a partner caring for the other just yet." Soon the couple even started turning on each other. At one point, William claimed Zachary was a pedophile and that he was engaging in these types of activities even before they had met. Meanwhile, Zachary, it was actually William who began
They both was
children.
pedos.
Regardless of who started it, neither of these men stopped the other. Neither thought to protect the boys. Judge Foster called out the pair, saying he didn't think it was likely that Haldy was the one blabbing to the public about the details of the case. He said, "My instinct is that much of what is out there was conversation that was assumed to be in confidence that obviously was not held in confidence. But I don't think William took a hint because immediately after the proceedings, he got on his tablet and messaged the very person who was leaking their conversations. Someone is leaking our phone calls, texts, and emails. I've only talked about certain things with few people. I hope none of our family members are doing this to us." Zachary also wasn't picking up the clues because he wrote, "The DA mentioned a gag order at court on William. Don't know what that's about." Nobody, not just William, both of you. As of today, William and Zachary are each facing over 9 life sentences, and they've pleaded not guilty. Their court date was scheduled for March 2023.
How you plead not guilty and you admitted to doing that?
Is the 100 years sentence given to them enough for the crime they did? This is the question many who hears this story often ask. They were given these boys out of trust. No one...
Wait a minute, I think that's the same thing. Wait a minute. Oh, no. No.
Of himself, and he asked me if I enjoy.
Oh my God.
Child from foster care can be wonderful.
Okay.
Is the 100 years sentence given to them enough for the crime they did? This is the question many who hears this story often ask. They were given these boys out of trust. No one knew they had an evil plan right from the start. What happens when the people trusted to protect and nurture children become the source of their greatest suffering? In a quiet Georgia suburb, behind the doors of a seemingly perfect home, something unthinkable was happening. It was a house admired by neighbors, a family praised for their kindness and generosity.
They need the death penalty. You adopted them boys, you sodomized them for years, you pimped them out to other men. They deserve the death penalty. This is awful. Like, share, subscribe, hit that like button, please. I appreciate my new subscribers. I'll be back with another one. This is just awful. Awful. Man, this shit brought me to tears for real. They got 100 years each, and they deserve the death penalty for real. All right, y'all. Like, share, subscribe. I'll be right back with another. I'm trying to get rid of some of this old content.